Hello there. Welcome to GitLab Pipeline Series Part 2. In this series, we are going to learn few new concepts and features of GitLab pipelines. We'll discuss about environments, artifacts, what is cache, dependencies, and a different type of GitLab pipelines. So in our previous lab, we have already discussed about what is GitLab pipeline, what is the ML file structure, what is stages, jobs, and runners. We have already discussed there are two types of runners. One is the shared runners that is provided by the GitLab itself, and the private or custom runner that we need to create by ourselves by using any kind of virtual machines by that is provisioned either in Azure or AWS or GCP. So we'll discuss on that how we can create our own private or custom runner for our project specific pipelines. We have also briefly discussed about already discussed about the artifacts, what is variables, what are the different kind of variables, and pipeline triggers. Okay, so in the previous lab also we have run a pipeline, and that I can show here. If you see here uh, in GitLab, if we go to my GitLab and projects. So yeah, in the previous pipeline we have created this GitLab 01. This is my project that we already discussed, and under this if we will go, we have the um, pipelines, and here we can see that this is the pipelines that we have already executed yesterday. Okay, I mean in our previous pipeline, previous lab. So in case of pipeline trigger, so there are different ways we can do that to trigger the pipelines. Either it may be by whenever we are checking the code to our repository, it will trigger, or whenever we are doing any merge request. In that case also we can configure it to trigger the pipeline. We can also manually run it. For example, if we want to run it manually, then we can just create a new pipeline, and um, uh, if any parameter, specific parameter you want to pass, you can pass here. But in my case, I'm not using any dynamic parameters to use in the pipeline, so I'm not providing anything here. Then just click this new pipeline, so it will trigger the pipeline here. So in our previous, I mean the pipeline that we have discussed in your previous lab, it has three stages: build, test, and deploy. And build has two jobs, test has one job, and deploy has one job. Okay, so here these stages, I mean the stages will run sequentially. I mean, when the build stage complete, test will start, and when test will complete, then deploy will start. But the jobs in a single stage will run parallelly, or it will execute together. I mean, if there are many jobs, all the jobs will run parallelly. Okay, so this way, this we can trigger the pipeline. There is another way also we can do, like we can schedule it. Okay, suppose you want to schedule the job every day in a particular time or every week, then what we can do, we can create a new schedule here. Okay, you can provide any name like test schedule 2 something, and there is some time zone you can select. For example, you can provide, suppose I am in London, so I can, but it's taking Edinburgh. We can, it is in UK, so we can check the Chrome time zone we have to select, and here we can select custom, or if we want to use any of the predefined in patterns, we can also select any one of these, and here we can specify the Chrome expressions. Okay, so this mainly mention like it is, this is the minutes, and this shows the hour, it shows the date. I mean it will be from 1 to 31, then it is the day, and the last one is the weekdays. I mean which week it will create, I mean whether it is Monday, Tuesday, or something like that. Okay, you can see here the first one is the minutes, the second one is hour, then day of the month, and here we can put the, this one is the month, you can select any one of the value 1 to 12, and the last one is the week, it starts from 0 to 6. Okay, so that way we can provide here anything like depending upon some value we can put here, or you can suppose you want to execute 30, and every hour if you want to execute, make it star, and we can put star here. And every day if you want to and if you want to execute it in every 30 minutes, then we can create expression like this. Okay, so that we can do, and you can just save this, so it will create the schedule here. Okay, so you can see here I have already created uh, one scheduler here, test schedule. So this is it will execute, you can say it will run after 23 minutes. I'll show you whenever it will run. I'll again later time I'll show you this. Yeah, so this we have already discussed in our previous lab. So today we'll mainly focus on few new concepts like environments. We have already discussed that in your pipeline we can create multiple environments, like development, staging, production, or like anything testing. Okay, depending upon our requirement. And in our job we need to mention that environment. So if you have not created the environment in the GitLab pipeline, and still if you are mentioning, then GitLab pipeline will automatically create the environment for you. Okay, and you can specify a URL for that particular environment. Yeah, so if we go here, you can show that in operate, right? Yesterday we have already discussed this. We have already created few environments here. Okay, and so here it shows we have this environment. Okay, in GitLab it shows for two, but if we go to we'll select the my project here. Okay, so if I go to my project one here, and there we can see there are three environments. Okay, so if we go to project, and let me select my project one, and if I'll go to operate and environments, so here I can see there are three environments. But in my project two it doesn't show this because I have not run any pipeline on those environments. Okay, yeah. So next let's go to again go to the project two again. Okay, so if we go here and if we see the code and repository, we can see. Um, so today, what we are going to discuss basically the environments that what we have already done, and artifacts that also we have discussed. So artifact is nothing like it will create some file or some kind of um, uh, um, artifacts. I mean, it's a kind of file, and it will save to a particular folder. Okay, so that can be used in any of the job. Okay, so by default it can be downloaded by the any of the job, and that can be used those artifacts. Okay, so that we can show for example. I'll show how we can do that. Then case, we can use case. So case is basically whenever we it is basically used to make our pipeline faster. So what it does basically, when we, for example, in any of the build job, suppose you want to install a, for example, you are going to install uh, npm install something you are doing. Okay, so if you are install this, then what it will do, it will create it will download no, the packages, and it will store under the node underscore modules. Okay, so this will, whenever we execute this npm install, it will try to do this. Since our pipeline it run in a runner, and the runner will be always a new one, it is not used as existing runner. So whenever we'll run the pipeline, GitLab will allocate a runner for this, that is dynamically it will do. And so that and this will be a new one that it is not used by the pipeline before. Okay, so again it will, what it will do, it will try to run this npm install for that particular job, and again try to download the packages and store it under the this folder. Okay, so this is a repeated work, right? Because in we are in our pipeline we can run it multiple times, right? So every time if we'll do, then it will try to install it, and it will download the packages, so it will take time, right? So in order to avoid this repeated unwanted task, right, which consume time, so what we can do, we can create a cache for this. So the GitLab, it will store this cache. Okay, so with a name. Okay, so for example, node cache. So we just keep a name for key for this, and what we'll do, we'll just mention the path. So this value will be stored. Okay, so whenever next time and the pipeline will run and it's try to execute the npm install, it will find that okay, this node is already available, this folder is already available, so it will not download the packages again. So in this way it will save the time. Okay, so this is the main use of using cache. So it will speed up our pipeline. So what is the difference between artifacts and uh, cache? So cache is basically, it can be used across the pipelines if we have multiple pipelines, right? So cache, the same cache we can use. Okay, since it is already the values or the packages or the folder is stored by the GitLab, that can be accessed by the pipelines. So it used being used in across the pipeline. But artifact, it is some files, okay, or packages that stored in that particular pipeline, and it can be only accessed or downloaded by the jobs of that particular pipeline. So that is the difference basically. Okay, so next is dependencies. So what is dependencies? Okay, so as we discussed, like artifact, which, we can save some files in a particular from in one job, and those files can be, by default it can be accessed by all other jobs of the stages. Okay, so that is a default um, step, like it will be by default it will be available by all the jobs, so all other jobs that can by default it can be downloaded. Okay, so it is an unwanted thing because few jobs, right, uh, those jobs do not want that particular artifact, but still it will be downloaded to that particular job. So that way it will also take time, right? So in order to avoid that, we can use dependency. So for example here, in this case, for this job, test job, here it depends upon build job. Okay, so whatever the artifact it created here, so it will be downloaded here because we mentioned dependency. Okay, if we are not mentioning also, it will download, we can use it. But the thing is, if there is any other job, okay, and in that case, if we do not want, right, then only, so what it means, like we only mention whenever we want to download that, otherwise it will not download to that particular job. Okay, so here if you can see, in this case, it depends upon the test job. Okay, so if anything that is there, then it will be downloaded here, otherwise it will not download whatever artifact is in the build environment, it will not going to download in the deploy job. Okay, I mean, whatever artifact that is saved in the build job, that will be not going to download in the deploy job. Okay, because it only depend upon the test job here. Okay, so that is the purpose of using the dependencies. So here it also speed up the pipeline and reduces artifact transfer size. Okay, so it will not by default download always to the any of the job. Okay, next, pipeline types. So as we discussed, like in previous lab, right, here whenever we check in our code, by default uh, it will run the pipeline. And if we want to specify, like okay, this pipeline should run whenever there is a change in a particular branch, then that we can mention. If you want, like you can mention only main, or in specific way you can mention it, we can put a mm, rule also, like that, what we have discussed in previous lab. And if we are trying to do it in using merge request, if we want to execute the pipeline using merge request, so in that case we can mention this rule. And here uh, we have to mention ci pipeline source. Okay, so this is nothing, this is a inbuilt variable. So it is the pipeline source, okay, from where the code is getting checked in. So if it is merge request event, then it will trigger the pipeline. Or you can specify in different way, like only merge request, like this. Okay, and scheduler, we have already discussed, we can schedule the pipeline depending using the cron expression. Okay, and the other ways how we can simplify pipeline, because in some situation, whenever we are creating pipelines in enterprise level, organization, right? In that case, the pipelines will be very vast. Okay, so in order to make it simple and make it easy to maintain, what we can do, we can use child pipeline. So child pipeline is nothing, it is a different YAML file. Okay, it is just like a function, like in programming language we write a function and we just call it in our main function. The same way in our parent uh, pipeline YAML file, we can call the child YAML file. So child YAML file will define some stages or jobs. Okay, and it is like a specific related to specific task. Okay, for example, suppose in our main pipeline we have different stages like dev, test, and prod, right? So this dev, test, and prod, those stages and the jobs we can include in a child pipeline separately, and those child pipelines you can directly call in the main pipeline. So in order to give an example, I have created a pipeline here. You can see uh, in this case you can see here uh, we have the main. This is the main pipeline, or you can say parent pipeline, and we have a child pipeline here. The name I just given child pipeline, but we can give anything. Okay, what here I'm trying to do is, here you can see in the parent pipeline it contains three stages, and here one job is build app. Okay, it belongs to the stage build, and it does some script. Here you can see it is creating a normal model. Just it is not a, it's again a dummy pipeline. It is not just to show the concept I have just written, but in your future sessions we'll learn in real pipelines how we can do in case of using our own source code, how to create a Node.js application or .NET application, how to build them, how to create the Docker images, how to push it into the repository. So all this we'll discuss in our future lab. So here I'm just discussing about the concepts. Okay, so here what it's trying to do is like it's creating a name simply just to show, to cache it. Okay, so I just want to cache this. Okay, what I want to cache is like it's just creating node modules here, and some value I'm just writing to a library.txt and keeping on this folder, also creating another um, directory build, and here I'm just creating a app.txt file. Okay, these two things, and here I'm just caching this node module. So cache, I'm doing this cache here, and the other one is the artifact. The artifact, it is whatever this app.txt, it will be stored under build directory, and this lib.txt it will store under the node modules. Okay, so it will create one cache here and one artifact here. So it is nothing, just to save in the GitLab. Some location it will store this cache and artifacts. And this can be, so this cache, this can be available to any pipeline in that project. Okay. And artifacts, this file basically it will available to that particular pipeline only. Okay. Next, this is another job, deploy dev job. Here it is simply trying to, so you can see it, this artifact build whatever we created, right, from build, it will try to, it will automatically download here. Okay, so it will download automatically here, and we can see the contents of that app text here. Okay, so it is the artifact is available to the next job here. And I have mentioned environment here, so it will deploy to the development. So here the development environment, GitLab development environment basically track what are the different, how many times the pipeline is run, what are all this history it will keep. And here we just mentioned dependencies, build app, so it depends upon the build app. Okay, next, there is another job just created like trigger tests. Okay, this is the test stage. Okay, so uh, I'm just creating it like name is the trigger stage, and under this, what I mentioned is it needs job build up. Okay, it like dependency we can also use needs. Okay, so that means it required the build up to run the job that is defined in the child pipeline. Okay, so here you can see we have to mention like trigger, and under that we have to mention include and the local child pipeline.yaml. So this is child pipeline YAML, whatever I'm just written here. So this we can refer like this. So under this stage, I mean this job, and under trigger stage, it will we can execute the YAML file, a child YAML file here, and we can refer it like this or call like this. Okay, it will be trigger. After it's done, it will trigger, and we can include it like this. Okay, and strategy depend. So it is depend upon the previous jobs. Okay, so if you go here into the child tab here, the child pipeline has two stages: test and report. Okay, so if you see in run test job, it depend upon the stage test. It is does something, you can see here, and they try to since it is depend um, the test result, right? It is just creating some file here. Okay, and it is creating another artifact. Okay, and this is again used by this, depends upon this, by generate report job. And here you can see it is doing something, and uh, again creating another report. It's kind of a simple dummy jobs, you can see, but I'm just discussing how, what is the scenario, I mean, how is the flow of using a parent and child pipeline. Okay, how we can access the, call the child pipeline in the parent pipeline. Okay, so if we want to run this, we can, if any changes we are doing, you can simply do the changes and commit it to run. Otherwise we can directly, we can go to the build and pipeline here and can run it. So if we see here, we can just run it again. I can manually run it here. Let me execute it. So here it started. So we'll start the build pipeline, build stage, then deploy stage, then trigger stage. So trigger stage has another two jobs we can get. There it has own stages and jobs. Okay, that we'll see in few seconds how it get executed. If you go to inside, you can see it's taking some time here. So what it does is make dir cannot create directory. So it says that node modules it's already exist. Okay, so why it is says that it is already exist? Because we are using case. Okay, and this pipeline is already uh, run once. If you see, I have run it before. Okay, it passed, so it is already cached that node modules. So because of that, if you see here, okay, what we are doing, we are trying to create a directory here. Okay, since this pipeline already run, it already created that, and it is already cached. Okay, it is already cached, I mean, this is already stored here. So it says that whenever we're running that, it downloaded that, and it saw that okay, this folder is already available. So for that reason, the pipeline fails. So in order to run it, what I can do here is, we can do, if we want to clear that case, we can what we can do, we just clear run our cases here. Okay, so once that is done, let me run the pipeline again. Let me trigger it manually again. Okay, next, create new pipeline, then it will run the pipeline again. Here you can see here, and if you go inside, it will start. This time it should run because we have cleaned the case. Okay, let it execute. You can see here, okay, it succeed, and it created, yeah, if you see here, it created. Okay, now it got success. Let's go to the pipeline again. We'll see it's running here. Okay, now deploy dev, it is in progress. This is done. Then it will come to the trigger test. So this is the child pipeline, and this has two different stages here. If we see here, it has two different stages: run test and generate report job. Okay, it will take a few seconds to complete. Okay, it's done now. Okay, so let me again show this. You can see these are all executed. Now it is cached again. If second time if we run again, it will fail because it will since uh, this directory is already there and it is cached, it will again fail. Okay, just for check like how the case is used, we can just check. I mean, the concept we can get clear from here how it is stored the case and reuse in our next pipeline. We can see it will fail. Okay, let me just let it execute. Let me go to the first project, and here I have the pipeline. I have created a scheduler, and let's check it got executed or not. We'll just verify it. It's taking time. Let it load. Okay, so what it says is, yeah, it got executed already, started. And if you go and because this is manual approval required for this, let me execute this. It will show that it got executed in few minutes before. It will display here. Okay, yeah, it is running. Okay, come to this part. Let's see. Now it again give the error because it says that this node module already exists. Okay, so this way the cache works. Okay, so by this we just learn the different concepts like what are the dependency, what is artifact, what is cache. Okay, and all these things. So in our next lab we are going to launch something new concept and how we can apply this in our day-to-day project, uh, build or test and deploy into the different environments. Yeah, so that will discuss. Okay, let's go to this and you can see here this got executed. If you see, right, it shows 58 seconds ago. Okay, and that I just triggered, so this got executed. Okay, let's see. I may not be sure. Let's see what. Okay, it says that next run 5 minutes ago. Bit confusing. Okay, we'll discuss this further. I'm not sure why there is some time difference. Maybe in that we need to check. Okay, so yeah, that's all. We can discuss later. What is this scheduler actually does? It keeps it's not doing in proper way. Anyway, we'll discuss in our future lab again about this. So thank you so much for attending this lab, and um, in our next lab we'll discuss something new. Till then, thank you. Bye bye.